Yeah, welcome to another episode of the Racer X Exhaust Podcast. I'm Jason Wygant. Thank you for watching, listening. Leave a rating. I think that's what you do on the podcast network. Subscribe. I think that's what you do on a podcast network. Like and subscribe. I think that's what you do on YouTube if you're watching the video version of this. Today we're going to get into a topic that we all think we know a lot about, but we actually don't, and that is the topic of homeschooling. And that includes me. I need some schooling on the topic of homeschooling because what I've learned is On Track, which is pretty well known throughout this industry as the school of choice for riders who can't just attend their regular public or private school at home, the Monday through Friday, get on a school bus thing. So On Track Schools and Andrea Lieb, her program here has been around for a long time. But there is a significant difference between homeschooling, which means mom and dad teaching the kids at home, or not, and just saying they are. And then what On Track does, which is basically a virtual school, which has real teachers, real assignments, a real education. But I know that this still carries a stigma, and I know that school's not a really exciting thing. You'd probably much rather talk about what went down at San Diego for Supercross. But at the same time, this is woven into the fabric of the sport. It is intrinsic to what we do. It is almost impossible. It is almost impossible to go all the way through age 18 in a public school and have success as a professional rider. Now, I know there are some that have done it, but the exceptions don't prove the rule. Generally, if you're not able to ride and train a lot around, say, 15, 16 years old, you're going to be at a significant disadvantage. And although there are a few riders who have proven otherwise, the fact that the majority of them don't means that this is a real decision that parents have to make. And in addition, we have this whole other thing. On Track was there just to allow racers or athletes or people with special talents and skills that have to travel or have a weirdo schedule. On Track was invented for those students to be able to get their education. But I think as we've seen the last couple of years, COVID times, people are having alternate ideas on everything, and that would include maybe not sending their kids to school, or maybe you don't agree with the way the school systems are going. Have you noticed that people tend to disagree on everything these days? So suddenly the idea of virtual schooling seems a lot more common, a lot more normal, a lot more popular. So maybe On Track's the one for you. We're going to learn about their curriculum, but also the general idea of how this started and some of the pros and cons. A little long intro here, but I think it's important to explain why I thought this was an important topic. I've been talking to Andrea Lieb about this at the races for 15 years, but I've never done an actual formal interview with her. So it's always just kind of conversation or coming up in the tower at Loretta's and talking for 2 or 3 minutes. We get a lot more in-depth here. And again, maybe you don't think it's the most hot topic in the sport, but it's actually very, very critical for how this sport works. And we'll also learn how the athletes, how the riders used to feel about this and how they feel now. It's kind of encouraging, as a matter of fact. So let's throw a shout out to our sponsors, though. We've got Yoshimura, of course, here with our Exhaust podcast. Go to yoshimura-rd.com and check out the latest from them. Also, check out their social media feed and subscribe to their YouTube channel. They have some pretty cool behind-the-scenes videos of their teams prepping for the year. You got HEP Twisted T Suzuki. You've got, of course, the factory Honda HRC team. Winners again. Chase Sexton and Ken Roxon now both putting their Yoshimura shod Hondas into the center of the box here in 2022. So go to yoshimura-rd.com. They've got an exhaust system for you, regardless of what brand you ride. Also want to thank Liat for coming on board with our sponsorships. Different people ride for different reasons, yet there is a common denominator that binds everyone who puts their body on the line for the sheer enjoyment of it. And that is what Liat offers as a brand. They make protective wear, helmets, goggles, riding gear, knee braces, boots and neck braces, covering riders from head to toe for both moto and mountain bike. But what Liat really stands for is the promise of things to come, because they are in the business of making sure that you have the confidence and the equipment to push yourself faster, harder, and further than you thought you could go. Visit them at liat.com. And yes, On Track School is actually on board as a podcast sponsor this year. It's the K-12 distance learning school for students who are on the go. Chase your dreams and blaze your trails with nothing holding you back. And there are no limits to what you can do when the classroom is where you make it. So On Track School meets you where you are with flexible, personalized education that happens at your own pace. Pursue your dreams and your education with On Track, and we'll give you a discount. It's ontrackschool.com. Ontrackschool.com is the website to learn more. And at checkout, type in RX, capital RX 22, and get $100 off your registration at ontrackschools.com. ontrackschool.com. Ontrackschool.com. Yep, learning plurals and singular and many other things with Andrea Lieb. Podcast. 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 All right.
Okay.
Yep. All right. I am recording, so just be careful what you say. It'll be used against you in the court of law.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, so let's talk homeschool here with On Track. Okay, and I know that everybody's got all their different ideas of how this works or what it should be or what it shouldn't be. So Andrea Lieb, you're going to help us out. We'll talk specifically about what On Track gives, but I think we can also talk about the idea in general. There's a lot of stigmas that go with it. So we'll start specifically with you and the history of how On Track came to be. I know you're wedded quite closely to this motocross family thing.
Yes, absolutely. So it's really funny, and we talk about this often in our family, that when Michael, our son, who was, professional racer for many years, my husband started taking him across the country and told me I was going to have to start homeschooling both Michael and our daughter, Allie. And I literally said, over my dead body, there's no way I'm going to homeschool our kids. And that's because we lived in the mountains of San Bernardino. And some of our neighbors who were homeschooling back then, and I'm talking, 17, 18 years ago, were literally, out hunting coyotes. So my idea of homeschooling was very tarnished. And I worked in the school district. And so I just thought, well, the school district has to work with us. And literally, it was such a challenge. And we just noticed as we traveled that the reality that I was going to have to literally homeschool our kids was real, because the school districts weren't working with, obviously when you miss more than 10 days a semester, it's a problem. So by the time all of our racing community was going to the spring nationals, people were just dropping out of school, and that wasn't okay either. So this evolved over literally 17 years into what it is today, which is not homeschool, which is a private school. So distance learning private school.
Yeah, exactly. So I know people put it under that umbrella, so we can help flesh that out. So what's interesting, though, is you had some of the same reservations that people would hear when they first hear this. You actually felt the same way at first.
I totally did, which is why that conversation, with parents is so easy for me. And realizing, gosh, it is really a big decision. But, Jason, what I saw back in the day was non-school.
Mm-hmm.
I saw people really not having an option, not feeling understood. We weren't playing baseball or golf and something more traditionally accepted by the school system. So people were just non-schooling and trying to figure it out. And unfortunately, that left us with a big gap of, professional racers who never graduated, which we could talk about later.
Yes, it's the joke that Davey and I make where they say homeschool, but often that means no school. So explain then the difference. Give me even the definition from a teacher standpoint of why you're saying On Track, you think homeschool, that's not what On Track is. It's not homeschool.
Correct. So homeschool, in some states, you can register as a homeschool. And that means that the parent is then taking on the teaching responsibilities. And we know that that's not always the easiest thing to do, which is why I didn't want to do it, which is also not that I wasn't qualified, right? I could very well be the plumber with the leaky faucet. I don't know. But I just knew that was going to be a challenge on the relationship between mother and son and mother and daughter, to have to wake up to me every day, do your homework. Mm-hmm. So with a private school, and the premise that On Track was built on, because of my strong feelings about that, the teachers, that are hired are fully credentialed, and they are the conduit, right? They're the team member between the parent, who we call the home coach, and the teacher, who's the learning coach. And that takes the pressure off. Doesn't mean it's an easy job for the parent nonetheless, because they then become the facilitator, and they have to sign an agreement, team contract with us.
So they are the facilitator and they have to sign an agreement, but I think we all experienced to some degree having to become our kids' teachers over the last 2 years, and yeah, it was a disaster and it was terrible. Um, but the difference here is you have teachers. The family has to facilitate, but all the stuff is not on the parents' shoulders. That's what you folks are there to do.
Correct. It's a multi-pronged approach. Yes, the student has a job to do, the parent has a job to do, our teachers and our entire team have a job to do to support that student. And I believe that every student should have the opportunity to be successful. And I think we've got a solid track record in that area.
What's interesting is, so yeah, even you were taken by surprise when your husband is like, "Hey, our son's pretty fast, and this is what we need to do." I think people would assume that you're always advocating for this, but I believe what you've probably seen is there are plenty of people that this isn't their first choice. This is the choice they have to make, and this is just the best choice when you get to that situation. I'm sure you have stories of families who are like, "I guess we have to do this. This is the only way to pursue this sport. We would love for it to be easier. We would love to go to public school. We can't." I mean, isn't that what eventually happens when someone shows promise as a racer?
Yes, yes, indeed. And of course, we have a lot of the up and coming pros, and I'm so proud of them. Many of them are ambassadors in our program. And they did exactly as you just stated. They got to that step where, okay, we've got to do this.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I'll get a call from, you know, well-known people in our sport that say, I knew I was going to make this call one day. Today's the day. And
Yeah.
I'm not a pushy salesperson. I'm passionate about student success. My heart breaks for the kids during the pandemic that had to go online. And, there are many mental health issues that have come up since then because a lot of the kids didn't have, a backup plan or like our riders, they have like some type of normal life through this. They get to still go ride
Hmm.
and follow their passion. So passion to me is very important. So being able to support the kids in our community has been a blessing. And during the pandemic, we grew 68% in 2020. Typically, our growth pattern is about 30% on average, which is very good. But in 2021, it was over 120%. So what's happened is, backing up your question, is the people that were thinking about it, it's a no-brainer. And the people that had to deal with the school system and try and be online 6 hours a day, which, by the way, is not realistic and it's not really good for anybody.
Right.
That's not how our school runs. I think it's just become, oh my gosh, if I did this myself, can you imagine if I did this with support? And so, yeah, it's just amazing.
So what I think we're learning here is, I think a lot of parents, and I believe this discourages people from getting involved with this sport. You get to this point where you're like, "Oh no, if our child actually ends up being good at this sport, we're going to have a problem now because we're going to have to sacrifice education." So what you're trying to do is say, no, you can have both. It's not just a compromise. It's not the best we can do. You believe that On Track is able to give them the educational component. They're not actually sacrificing that. It might be a little different than attending their school Monday through Friday, but it's not a compromise and it's not a sacrifice.
No, in fact, I think it's the opposite. I
Mhm.
think I think it's the full ride of education. I'm so excited that our students actually like their school. They post about it.
Mhm.
At Minios, we were able to have a somewhat homecoming. And I don't know if you read about it or saw it, our social media, Disco in the Dirt. I mean, these kids were extremely excited. And so I think we bring to the table more than that. I think we bring community. And I think that's what's missing in the school options that, our children are left to decide. And by the way, it's National School Choice Week this week, so I've got
Oh,
my flag going on in the back, and I'm all about choice. But I think that as hard as that decision is, I think parents are pleasantly surprised when they see the team that they're supported by and the sense of community that they're involved with.
I don't know how much into detail you want to get. I mean, you know better than anyone. If you get too detailed, sometimes the eyes tend to glaze over. But just give me an idea of what the students would be doing on a typical week or a typical month or even a typical day. Maybe it varies. Because I think that's what, on the outside looking in, I think people probably have no idea whatsoever what this actually entails. So I don't know how, in layman's terms, you can make it happen, but can you give us a
Sure.
little bit of that?
No, I think it's a really good question because the first question, after I meet people is how does this work? Because
Yeah.
it's like this large animal and you have
Mhm.
to you
It's
have
the
to
elephant in the room. I think that's the whole thing.
yeah,
No one
yeah,
knows until you do it. So help us
yeah,
out.
sure.
Yep.
Absolutely. So we use Google Apps for Education. Google Classroom
Mhm.
is our online classroom. So I think that in the Google Apps for Education platform that we use, I mean, putting your hand up when you have a question is as easy as just the little text bubbles going in the chat and the teacher writing back. I mean, it's that closely knit. So if you can wrap your mind around the fact that even though you're outside of those four walls, you're in this evolving, ever fluid online community where people are working all over the country in real time. So, in the different classes that students are in, there are live sessions. Obviously, everybody's got a different training schedule. And if you can't make that, it's recorded. K through 8 has their standard four classes. Middle school now has some options for enrichment electives. And then high school, we have different pathways. There's not one way for everybody. And so I think what's really important is to personalize the educational experience or journey for each individual student. And so, based on what their plan is in Google Classroom, they have a checklist and they have their assignments and they can work ahead, which is what some of our top up and coming ambassadors have done. You'll see Ryder D graduating early. You saw Nick Romano graduating early. That's not an easy thing to do. They're actually paying attention and liking the idea. And you know what? Getting motivated that, oh my gosh, I can like school. I can do good in school. I can take this with me and I can work ahead. So everything is in Google Classroom to work ahead. We also have like a homeroom coach, a point of contact. It's much easier if you're in high school and you're not contacting 6 or 7 teachers. We remember, of course, I'm a lot older than you are, but I remember how overwhelming that was sometimes. So, homeroom coach meets with each student monthly and goes over goals. Simple. What's working? What's not working? Are you on track? Why are you not on track? What could we do to better support you? So that's just a nutshell without getting too deep into it, but just remembering that personalization, pathways to success, and how we can better serve you is what we do all within our student information system and our learning management system.
Now, one thing I learned with the brief amount of schooling at home I had to do without your virtual assistance is that when it's a little more focused, the standard school day is, say, 6 to 7 hours, right?
Right.
We learned, unfortunately, it was really hard, but you could be done in significantly less time during the day than that. And that's not compromising. You're still learning all the things you're supposed to learn. So, is that something? Is the typical day, I don't know if there is a typical day hours wise, but is it end up being shorter, which I'm sure is part of the appeal here? The flexibility is also, but is the actual hours different than I would be in school from 7:30 to 2:30?
Exactly. When you take away, you know, lunch period, when you take away library, when you take
Hmm.
away PE, because these kids, we already know that they're well advanced with PE.
PE, yes, they're doing PE for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and they're doing a lot more than that when you think about it. When you think about STEM curriculums, science, technology, education, mathematics, there's so much you can do. And when you appeal to their interest, it's golden. But to answer your question, I'd say 3.5, 4 hours tops.
Mm,
And if you really want to take off Fridays and we talk about that motivational factor for traveling, because some of our kids are in futures, they're going to, so many races, GNCC racers are hitting the road on Friday. So it's manageable to get it done Monday through Friday. And Monday through Thursday, even for very highly motivated students. So our coaches work with them on time frame, and not everybody is an 8 to 12 kind of kid either. So when they come in, we actually give a learning style profile, And we talk about what are your power traits and how can we use these to motivate you for a greater level of success. I think it's funny that after my husband's conversation about having to homeschool our kids, we all took this survey. That's how long ago I've been using it. Michael was in 5th grade and Allie was in 8th grade. And I learned, oh my gosh, Allie's not going to get up at 8 o'clock. She's going to be doing work at 7 in the evening because that's her best time of day to absorb new information. So that was an adjustment, for all of us to make, that we had to find out what everybody's best time, not to say everybody has to do that, but it definitely is helpful to have a blueprint like that when you get started.
Well, what we're seeing here is, again, we're going from this is not a compromise, this is not a band-aid solution, but you could actually, even if you didn't have the travel issues of racing and things like that, I believe people could hear that and see the actual appeal, even if they were just living at their house 7 days a week and weren't traveling. There's probably a lot of people, I can tell you personally, yeah, my daughter hates doing stuff in the morning. She's great in the evening. My son is the exact opposite. But in regular school, everyone has to rigidly stick to the same formula. Are there some people that have discovered benefits that they maybe didn't even realize they were going to get going in? Because I'm sure the travel is the main reason they want to do this. But that seems appealing in completely other ways too.
Yeah. So, for a long time, our 3 words were online, flexible, personalized, because those things hit the people that are looking for a solution to where they currently are. And you're right. I got several calls this week. California's getting a little crazy. We don't have to get political here, but I will if you want to.
We're good. We're good. Yeah.
We've got people pulling their kids out of school. They're not racers. They're looking for better education. They're looking for school choice. And, they're already noticing the changes in their high school students taking on that decision on their own and being able to own their own education. I think that's important.
So how many years would you say? I know it kind of started, it wasn't On Track as a company at first, but how many years has On Track itself been working?
I would say 2003.
Okay.
I finished my master's degree. I got a master's in counseling. At that point, I was going to go and take on a counseling job at a school. And that's when my husband made this comment about, we're going to have to take care of our kids' education. And he was absolutely right. So I started tutoring at the track. I even tutored Brian Villapoto fractions. I would go to motorhome and I'd work with these kids. And I'd say, I remember being at the World Mini in Las Vegas and thinking, this is the craziest thing, because these kids are not focusing on school, yet the parents are panicking, right? Because they're going to go home and it's spring and they're going to be kicked out of school because they missed too many days. And it was just so stressful that's when I realized I needed to start something. So it evolved from there. It evolved from my tutoring to On Track Learning Solutions, which was a nonprofit. We still have that, and we collect donations towards scholarships, and On Track School Incorporated now. So it evolved from tutoring into, I took a select group of kids, including my own, tried it out, and I thought, this is really going to be something. And I'm blessed to do what I do. I absolutely love it. And I love the team that we work with. And it just shows that one foot in front of the other where something can actually go.
Quick break here on the Racer X Exhaust podcast. Thanks to our sponsors, of course, Yoshimura, On Track School themselves, and Leatt for coming on board for 2022. Leatt, LEATT.com, On Track Schools. That's ontrackschool.com, and Yoshimura at yoshimura-rd.com. And help us keep the lights on with our journalistic endeavors within the sport. Subscribe to Racer X. It's the magazine, but you can now read every part of the magazine on the web, which means you can read it on your phone. You do have to be a subscriber to access everything that's inside the magazine. And what's inside the magazine is different from what we post on social media or what we post on the website. Just consider it Racer X Plus, okay? Free marketing tips. We'll just call it Racer X Plus, because that's what these companies do when they give you premium access. It's $30 for the year, not $30 a month, $30 a year, and we'll give you the free tumbler coffee mug that I've been using for the last week. I like it. and you go to racerxonline.com/weege, WEEGE, and then I will get credit for your subscription. I don't get extra money. I just get to brag that I sold more subscriptions than anybody else in the company, which is something worth getting a free tumbler about. $30 will send you the tumbler, and let's get back to the podcast. Well, these two things are colliding here because, okay, so you learn one foot in front of the other, everything gets better on your side, but I have to imagine, just like you mentioned in California, just recently, the stigma, the thoughts, people trying this, people believing in this, it has to have changed massively in the last, in that case, 19 years. People are probably, that would have never even considered that. Now it's probably fairly normal and probably not that crazy of a decision.
Yeah, exactly. I've been going to Loretta Lynn's is a very big event for us. We absolutely love going there. And now when we talk to people, the conversation is completely different. In the beginning, Jason, some people are like, on track school. So do you teach riding? Where's your facility? Oh no, we've done some kind of marketing glitch here.
Yeah.
And then it would be homeschool. No, that's not for me. And now it's literally, we want to sign up today.
Right. And the fact that it's not even, you're getting this other side that's not even for the travel. They're not even racers. And I think you've also mentioned through the years, because you are so far ahead on this, there are other athletes in other sports, other people that have different travel issues that make public school difficult. You have some people that reach out to you from that side as well, correct?
Yes. So we actually have up and coming NASCAR, IndyCar racers. We have a little group in Italy, in Formula 4. We've got some barrel racers, BMX kids, golf, tennis. We have a whole graph of where everybody comes from. And it's amazing. And a lot of it is the schedule. We've got baseball, basketball. It's awesome.
I think it's a neat thing then for the sport to say, it was developed in our little sport here and it's spilled out and people probably think highly of motocross because you developed this curriculum and it works for them even if they're not. So that's pretty neat. When it was a different conversation back then, I'm impressed, say, that you just mentioned two of the fastest amateurs out there, Ryder DeFrancesco, for example. It would be so easy for a rider in his situation to be like, I'm good, man. I'm going to make millions of dollars. I got a contract. I'm good. So at least even those, and there are no guarantees, but it's easy to trick yourself into it. Was it always that easy to get the riders at that level? Because to me, that would be the hardest. The riders that already feel like, I got paychecks coming in. I'm good. I don't need a high school diploma. That's actually pretty impressive that high-end riders buy into this.
Exactly. You bring up a really good point. And I want to be really careful of what I say. But there have been families where there were siblings and one's graduated and maybe one's not.
Yep.
And it was a very tough decision back then because, you're going to make $1 million or you're going to get your high school diploma.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And what I love about our current high level, athletes like Hayden Deegan, Casey Cochran, Caden Braswell, Evan Ferry, right? They are all very much focused on education to the point where they've actually made it very obvious to their team managers when school is, and none of these kids are fluctuating. They are all working super hard. What I love is their work ethic on and off the track, which is why many of them are ambassadors in our program. So it's quite different today, which is why I would love to say, I would love to do a pro racer challenge because I know that there's so many of them that still haven't graduated. And I'm still so grateful that Jeff Emig took that big step onto that stage. He didn't have to do that, but it was a box, that he didn't check off. But by doing that, Jason, he really made a stand as a mentor to our community, that it does mean something. And so we want to sponsor a pro racer. When they get to the 450 class, the AMA now has that ruling that you've got to have your high school diploma taken care of. And so we would like, any pro racer out there, even if you're retired, hint, hint, you can send over to ask@ontrackschool.com. a little video or statement, and our students are going to vote on who we're going to join us at 2022 graduation at Loretta Lynch. You got to be willing to put in some work. We will plan your transcript and we will plan your courses, and it could be easier than you think. So we really want to put that out there.
Yeah, that is phenomenal. And so what we're saying is there's essentially a bit of a lost generation. Today's amateur riders, your program's established. They can probably talk to their peers or riders maybe 3 years older than them. They can vouch for what you're doing. They're all buying in. But we had this generation from well before, and with Emig's case, well before. So he graduates with you. He's in his probably like late 40s at that point when he went to On Track, right?
Yeah, I think he was turning 50.
There you go.
And I think maybe that was one of his things, to do when he was 50. It was great. He had a great time. We had a great time. I mean, I really meant a lot to him and to us as well.
To further the appeal there, okay, so that's what you want to do. We'll try to get a pro racer, either a current rider or a retired pro that doesn't have the high school diploma to do this. I understand that at age 14 or 15, everyone thinks they know everything. And maybe at that point, them not doing school seemed really fun and really cool. But at the same time, we've seen tons of riders when they retire, now they don't have goals, they don't really have a schedule, they're a little bit lost. I would think the same person that didn't want to do high school at age 16, at age 36, might say, that actually sounds fun in a way. I'm looking for a challenge. I've worked to solve problems on the racetrack for 20 some years. I'm trained in that type of thinking now, and I would like to do it. I think it actually would sound appealing, especially if you're retired.
I think so too. I think the biggest thing that stands in the way is a little bit of pride, right?
Yeah.
You gotta make this stand, but anything worth fighting for is sometimes not comfortable. And I always share that with our ambassadors. We do these meetings and I try and share some wisdom. And I think when something's uncomfortable, you got to go there. And so if it means admitting that you never graduated, so what? Take that step. Talk to Jeff. He'll tell you how awesome it was. And Tim Cotter, our master of ceremonies, and it's just great. I think it's a great opportunity. So I hope we get some good names.
That's going to be fun. Now, there's a couple other scholarship things I know you want to talk about here, opportunities out there, like the race and things like that. So touch on that a bit.
Yeah, so this is really dear to my heart. Tennis players, basketball players, they all have a scholarship. They can get a football scholarship, right? What about our kids? Traveling around the country like we did, and not having that opportunity, because college is important, and you might not want it now, but you might want it in the future. So we learned about the 529 account. We're partnered with Mike Meeks from Edward Jones Foundation, and he came out to one of our scholarship races at GPF, who, by the way, made the first stand for the scholarship race program and has had 3 successful events, and that's super exciting. So we learned all about how does this work, and you put the money in this educational savings plan and it's tax-free, and how can we use our nonprofit to transfer this money to education. So these funds can actually be used for college, university, vocational school, or private K-12 school. We're not here to say, do this for On Track. We just want what's best for the student, but it's nice to have that option, especially if you're thinking, well, I don't need money for college. Well, okay, what about $750 or $1,000 to use towards a private school of your choice? So Scholarship Race was formed, and we've had 2 races in 2021. GPF again had their 3rd race, and Cal Classic, we finally have a West Coast round. In 2022, we're expanding to 4, and we're talking to OEMs about partnering with us. So where does the money come from? It comes from donations that promoters to this point have been working so hard within their community. I mean, GPF has been able to raise $17,000, $18,000, $19,000 a year just in their community. And those funds cover up to 10th place in 17 or 16 different classes. And those kids that race any of those races, at the end of the year, there's an annual application. And so this year we had $15,000 left over. And Jace Lewis, $3,000. Jason gets $1,000. Noah Schuring, $6,000 towards college. Tiger Wood, $2,000. Liam Olaf, $1,000, and Jonathan Getz, $2,000. That makes me so happy, that we actually have, an annual scholarship application. And I mean, that doesn't even talk about the tens of thousands of dollars that have gone out just to the kids who race those races. So we're really excited about that. People can go visit scholarshiprace.com, learn about a 529 account, and learn about, what that looks like and how it works.
Oh, so this is excellent. And I was even incorrect about that. Obviously, if they would like to use the scholarship money with On Track, they can. But this is more forward thinking than that. This is, if you want to go to college, any college, and yes, if you're a great swimmer, or if you're a great basketball player, you can get a college scholarship. You are trying to create a similar situation for racers. If it's with On Track, so be it. But it doesn't even have to be. It could be to the college that they choose to go to.
Absolutely. And it's transferable. So let's say someone never uses it and mom wants to go back to school.
Oh, wow.
Those funds can go to mom. I'm just saying there's so much there. We work with the AMA. We have a panel. Jeff Emmig's on our panel. The AMA is on the panel. We've also got Tim Cotter on the panel, and we work with GPF because they have done 3 successful races. And so we develop this to grow to multiple different race locations throughout the year. And I can see this even going into other sports that don't have a traditional scholarship pathway.
Yeah, which is a lot. It's easy to think of the 12 or so, what we would call, I guess, traditional sports, but there's a lot of other ones out there. So yeah, just talk about this college point. Also, we're just thinking of 16, 17, 18 years old. The high school schedule gets in the way of riding and training. So can you get that high school degree? That's one component. But absolutely, this also allows you to, when the time is right, maybe as soon as you're 18, maybe 5 years after you're done racing, On Track allows you to slide right into college just like it would if you had graduated any other high school.
Yes. And for our high schoolers that just want dual credit, we're partnered with Grand Canyon University. So we're already prepping these kids.
Okay.
Hey, even if you don't know what your college plans are, you can get college credit in high school with those. And we've researched who had the most compatible courses like ours, because it's got to be, something that they're familiar with to be able to be successful, and they're rigorous courses. So
yeah, have you had riders through the years who pursued the professional thing? They got the degree with you, so they had the high school degree, and then years later did eventually enroll in college? Or have you had people that are at least, I'm sure, enrolled in college almost immediately? But I've got to think some people put education on pause, tried the pro thing, and at age 25 or something, good thing I had this degree. I can actually go to college now. Has that happened?
Yeah, I would say Blake Wharton is a great example of that.
Okay.
He graduated years ago, wanted to go back to school, and we meet with our students who want to go back to school and help them try and navigate through that very often. And that's mostly what happens. I mean, I would say 30% maybe wait. A lot of our kids actually do go right on to school.
Wow. So they're racing and doing colleges generally online, and there's more options in that field, it seems.
Yes.
Yeah.
Past graduates have gone on to be airline pilots. We've got a neurosurgeon. We think in terms of the professionals that have graduated with us, but there's students that have ridden, and parents have been responsible and said, okay, if by this stage we're not here, we've got this plan, right? And so we've got firefighters, we've got doctors, we've got community workers, police officers. I can tell you names of where people have gone, but they don't always like me to do that. So
well, it solves the problem though, because like I said, this is a weird situation where, if your child is very good at one of what we call traditional sports, you're thinking this is great. We're going to pursue it to the absolute maximum because we might get a college scholarship out of this. Or at the very least, It's not going to make our lives more difficult. It's only going to have benefits. On the motocross side, it starts going the other way. You're like, the more all in we go with the racing, the more problems we might have down the road if the racing doesn't work out. So what this is doing to me is taking away some of that fear of, if we go too far in, we can't get back out. You actually can get back out if the time comes.
You know what? You absolutely can. I think our son Michael is a great example. Michael did not take the traditional college route, and I don't believe college is for everybody. I really think I've read the book College Unbound, and it's really about what color is your parachute and where are you going. And he was interested in finance, and we learned that early on when he took this power traits assessment. And I was like, finance, oh my gosh, if I could do math programs around money and allowance, maybe this kid will get his math done. And you know what? He did. And then he went on after high school and he graduated 2 years early, but that was because of injuries and he had to wake up with me every day. So
Okay.
we were going to graduate early, not
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
sit there on the couch. So he wanted to go and learn about trading and finance and currency. And now he's got a successful Canvas MX business. And I stem it back to that. He found an interest. He knew he was good at it. And he became a very successful businessman. And all of that actually happened during racing when he went out there in his white gear. So I think that's a great success story to share.
Yeah, well, it makes you proud probably as well. Hey, do you ever feel like there was a little pressure on him? Now he's moved on and he's not racing anymore. But I always felt like when Michael was racing at Loretta's and then you're coming to the tower to talk about on-track school, I'm like, everybody's going to be looking at him to be the poster child, fair or unfair, for this whole program. There had to be some pressure on him there.
I guess so. And that's why it was really nice when he won in 2009, right? Took a lot of pressure off.
Yes, and then he got the degree also. So he proved you could do both, because everyone's going to be looking if he didn't pull off either.
Yeah, gosh, and that wasn't an easy day either.
No, that was one of the all-time digging deep through adversity titles that I remember for sure.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's what it is. It removes that oh no, we're too far in, we can't get back out. You can get the degree.
right.
It allows you to go to college. You can have a completely normal. No one would even know you raced motorcycles when you're 30 years old if that's the path that life ends up having for you. And I think, man, that's a lot of trepidation that it would eliminate for people. So
Yeah.
I'm not surprised actually that you get donations and manufacturers and promoters that want to help, because it's a big obstacle, I would think, to people maybe stepping away from racing if they don't have an option for the education. I would think a lot of people put the dirt bikes away because of that. I don't know if you know that for sure, but it seems obvious that probably has happened.
Yeah, I think it's obvious too. And I'm
Yeah.
excited about the partnerships that we are forming with industry leaders. Weisco now has, we're in our 4th or 5th year of having them have a Weisco scholarship with us. And looking at, riders like Jordan Jarvis. She won money from sponsorship we did at Future. She couldn't use it. She gave it back, and we now have a Jordan Jarvis, scholarship available. And talking to Yamaha and Suzuki and KTM and Honda and Cobra and Kawasaki about come on board with the scholarship train, because it's a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
You help education out and you've got educated riders, and we're also doing public speaking with them. I mean, it's a great opportunity to know that your riders are in good shape, and such a opposite of when I first started, seeing how, yeah, very, very exciting to see that in our sport for sure.
Yeah, so real quick, explain. I know you got a couple of things on the list here about how some of it works, where you do get some live teaching with the instructors. That's pretty exciting also, which is pretty neat too. If you want to mention that, like live science labs, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we have a teacher that actually goes out to GPF. We have a classroom there, and we'd have a classroom at, multiple training facilities. And many of our training facilities want to work with us with that and are working on classrooms. So that's a nice change to see too. But Miss Danny goes out to GPF and she does live Zoom science labs. And I tell you, we get up to 100 kids watching those labs.
Yeah.
and it's fun. And again, a sense of community and belonging, and all ages. It's like a one-room schoolhouse, all ages, and Thor Powell in the background helping out with his mitts on and his goggles. It's hysterical. So that is fun. Something else that we do that's really inspiring is we do monthly webinars. So in our monthly webinars, the whole thing revolves around passion. Share your story, help enlighten and inspire our students to know that they can achieve their dreams. And so we've had Jeff Emig, Christian Craig, Ken Roxon. Ken Roxon actually donated a jersey towards our scholarship donations, and that was awesome to see. Travis Pastrana, Joe Shimoda, and the list goes on and on. Timmy Ferry, and we try and pull people like Caleb Russell to talk to the other dynamics of our student body and share their stories. So that's been a really great community building event for us too.
You mentioned Shimoda. Isn't he one of the more recent, like one of the young up and coming riders now? He attended On Track, right?
Yeah, he graduated a year ago, as did Jalip Swole. And watching them race Supercross is very exciting. I know they're frustrated. You know, I've been involved with Road to Recovery on some mental health webinars and peer groups, and we talk about expectations and what expectations does to us, right? And I think about Joe and Jalik, and you want to go out there so bad, and you belong here, and I just want to tell them, don't give up. You know, I'm on the sidelines cheering them on, but very excited for them and their futures. They'll do fine.
Yeah, I think it's good for people to know this is endorsed by really the top riders. So if you look at today's 19 and 20-year-old racer, they were an on-track student 2-3 years ago when they were graduating high school. So that proves that it can get the job done, even at the highest level. That's pretty neat. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, and we got a little discount going with you folks. Well, what is it? I believe we get $100 off if you type in RX22 in your code, and you got an early bird discount on registration. Is that what I see?
Yeah, the month of April is always 50% off. So typically people enroll with us early, and it's for the next school year. You'll save $150. Make sure you pay attention to @ontrekschool.com, and you don't miss that early bird. And again, yes, $100 off using the Racer X RX22 code if you want to sign up now, because we've got open enrollment. We're here to help.
Yeah, does it generally work around the school year, or is if someone's in a real panic and they have to make a decision right now, are you able to have them come in, I guess, midway through the school year, or how does that scheduling work?
Yeah, absolutely. We just take a transcript and we build the courses where you were, meet you where you're at, and help you finish. And most likely you'll finish off in a better situation.
Yes, it's not a compromise. It's not a compromise. It's not the best you can do. You're hoping it's actually an improvement over whatever education they were getting before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even better. Yep. And colleges, by the way, they agree with that. It's not really a hang up. You obviously had several people that have applied to regular college, and it's not an issue.
Right. We are accredited through Cognia. So with an accredited transcript, that transcript will get you into any college or university worldwide. It's a worldwide organization of 32,000 institutions, and we are proud to be a member of Cognia for accreditation.
Excellent. Okay, I got one assignment for you. This is a very large assignment. There's all these online universities, right? And I've always said, if they're trying to prove that their online university works for people that need a very flexible schedule, if there was a professional rider who could do all the professional rider things and get a degree, 4 or 5 years, whatever it takes, while racing, to me, that would be such a great endorsement for that online university. I think they should at least give out a scholarship for that. But here's the problem. Anytime I throw that out at some riders, they're like, well, I'd like the money, but do I actually have to do it? And I'm like, you can do it. You can do it. Like, it's a couple hours a day at the end of the night. Like, you can't train 14 hours a day. I think some rider out there would be a beautiful sponsorship endorsement deal. They just need to realize that education and racing can go together. So I'm just going to slide that in conversation whenever you want. I think it's an idea that's time needs to come.
I would tell you that one of our recipients, Noah Shuring, who won the $6,000 from the scholarship race fund, he is attending Florida State University, not online. And
not online. Wow.
This young man is doing it.
Yes.
So it is possible. I know the commitment is heavy. I know that, let's say University of Phoenix, I would say that's like a 16, 18 hour a week commitment. But you
Okay.
know what? It goes back to your power traits. When do you work best? How do you manage that? And just like being a successful business person today, you and I know, Jason, you've got to be organized. You've got to have these life skills. So I think that's what it is. I think it's prioritizing, and it's also figuring out where are you going to chunk up that time, get that calendar out. I know years ago, the calendar was not my friend. It really bothered me to have to put things on the calendar, but today I live by that calendar. And if it's not on the calendar, it's not happening. So I think it is possible, but it's a lot more complicated than that.
Oh, there's hope for all of us then. I would assume, you're an educator. You've lived and died by the calendar since you were probably 12 years old. But no, everybody needs to reform a little bit because I'm terrible at it as well. But you're telling me there's hope. We can fix it.
Totally. Oh, yes, there's hope.
I just want to see a rider out there, a privateer who's battling to make mains, also getting, say, University of Phoenix or fill in the blank, any university is an online program, sponsoring that rider, giving them an education, and maybe even giving them money as an endorsement to show, look, this rider's in a different state every weekend, and he's able to get a college education. So what's stopping you? I just think it would be a beautiful sponsorship arrangement, but you have to have riders that are willing to do it. That's
Well,
part of the hiccup.
and I will take your challenge homework assignment. And if there's
Yeah.
anybody out there that wants to talk about that, I have a PPS credential in People Services.
Mhm.
And so I can help assist and guide in that direction. But I would say, let's start with that high school diploma, because if you haven't gotten your high school diploma, it is not too late. It's not that complicated. Sometimes we're looking at this giant mountain, and it's
Mhm.
really not a mountain. It's just a matter of planning it and chunking it out to work with your schedule and put in some college courses through, and that's included. We're offering that too. If that means that we're taking some dual credit courses, then you're already on your way to college.
This is a good point, right? Because I keep thinking this is for the 15-year-old racer who has a decision to make right now, but you're also available for the 10 years down the road. If you didn't graduate and you're 25, you can still get that high school diploma.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
That's where I want to make the most impact. The 15-year-olds are easy. They got to get it done, and their parents still have a say about that,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
Let's work on those pros that have not graduated, and you know who you are. You're listening. This is happening.
Yeah, and by the way, you have ambassadors, but you're willing to keep it. you- You're not going to splash it out there. If the rider's a little embarrassed that he doesn't have a high school diploma, I'm sure you're not going to put him on Instagram every single day saying, "Look at this guy, he didn't get his high school diploma."
No, but we'll be there when he walks across the stage at Loretta's, and that is such a great opportunity, and we'll blow that up.
Yeah.
But our ambassadors, most of them are going to graduate early, like Ryder D,
Mhm.
Hayden Deegan, Casey Cochran's on that pathway, Caden Braswell, Gray Ledbetter, check her out. She races shifter carts. She's done all kinds of things. She's amazing. Thorpe Howell, he's a huge success story for us. He's doing such a phenomenal job. Jordan Renfro, Gage Brown. Now there's a young, talented little
Mhm.
guy.
Mhm.
Evan Ferry, Brighton Richards, Anthony Rhodes, um, Tom Liberta, Jace Lewis, Aiden Payne. Those are our ambassadors, and we're really, really proud of them.
That's cool. Hey, that means you get to go to school with them. You get to say they're your friends. You get to associate, say that you're buddies with them. Like in your regular school, there's the cool kids, and you want the cool kids to know you because they're
Yes.
popular. So there, you get to be friends with the cool kids.
Yeah, exactly. They're all cool kids.
That's right. That's right. Okay, and on track, ontrackschool.com is the place to get the info. Correct.
Correct.
Yep.
Yes.
And we'll catch you at a couple races. Daytona, Hogwaller GNCC right up the road there. So for the off-road side, I know that's growing over there. Most of the big amateur races throughout the year, and certainly Loretta's as well. So a couple places, if they want to talk to you in person, you'll be there.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I can't believe Daytona's right around the corner. That's going to be fun.
Yes, it is less than 2 months. It's just a little tiny bit over a month. This is crazy. So get on it, everybody. All right. Well, thanks. I hope we explained a lot of this, the difference between homeschool and what you're doing, why this isn't a compromise, why this might actually be a benefit. I think understanding the schedule and racing thing is the easy part. There's a lot of other things that folks probably haven't realized. So hopefully we helped a little bit here. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. It's always a pleasure. I look forward to seeing you.
Yep, that'll be a Daytona. We'll see you there.